maximize return, minimize taxes. In this educational episode, I'm going to address the question how to invest retirement money after retirement. Oh, you mean people have money to invest after they retire? You wouldn't believe how many people do, but many times they are told the wrong advice. Get ready, you're going to be blown away with what I'm going to share with you. I'm Doug Andrew. I'm here in my radio studio. I've been very blessed for the last 12 years to have a weekly radio show that I produce, and it's broadcast on many stations in America. I tell my listening audience concepts and strategies to help them gain insights into opportunities that maybe they didn't know existed before on how to optimize their assets, financial assets, minimize taxes, and not outlive their money in retirement. And I've spoken over 85,000 hours in my life to audiences of anywhere from 50 in a workshop to 20,000 people at conferences. And many times people will ask me the question, how do I invest, or what should I invest my money in after I'm retired? I go, actually consider yourself very, very blessed that you have money to do that. So many Americans do not have that type of an option. They can't even ask that question because they have a dearth. They're wondering how they're going to make it. They're going to have to rely on Social Security, charity, welfare, or their children for support. So if you are asking, golly, how do I invest after retirement or my retirement money that I don't need to live on in retirement? How do I invest that best? Well, it's not leaving it in your tax-deferred IRAs and 401ks. Did you hear that? That's the opposite advice of what you probably have heard from maybe a CPA or even a tax attorney or your financial advisor. They tell you to do what? Oh, if you don't need the money, leave it there. Defer until it used to be 70 and a half, because at that age is when you used to have to start taking the money out to avoid a 50% penalty on the money that you should have withdrawn based upon the government's life expectancy formula. See, the government has been using you as a partner to accumulate your money tax deferred, but they want their share of that, and they control what percent of that they want by just raising taxes. And so many times people think, well, I'm going to keep putting it off until age 72 is the new age, and then you have to start taking it out based upon your LE. LE is life expectancy. Let's say at age 72, your LE is 20 years. That means you'd have to pull out 1/20th of your retirement nest egg in your tax-deferred accounts to avoid the 50% penalty. If you had $1 million, that would be 50 grand. If you don't, the penalty is 25,000 on that 50,000, plus you still owe tax on the 50,000. The government will grab 80 or 90% of it maybe if you don't withdraw the money and get the taxes paid. And so people sometimes, I think, are duped into waiting and deferring, procrastinating until they're age 72. And then they're told to take RMDs, required minimum distributions, which is the worst advice I have ever heard. Now, people say, well, if that's the worst advice, why do they tell you to do that all the time on CNBC on their financial shows? And I go, ask yourself, who's funding CNBC? Tax revenuers. They don't want to kill a partnership where the government continues to earn a third or more of everything you will ever earn if you leave the money there. Why would they kill that kind of a partnership? So they tell you to stretch it out and take out RMDs if you don't need the money. The first advice I give to people is if you don't need all of the money in your tax-deferred IRAs or 401ks, don't leave it there thinking you're saving tax. You're actually stretching it out. And I show them through software that we designed how much they will pay in tax if they string it out and take RMDs the rest of their life, their spouse's life, and then through their children. Now children have to pay tax on it within 10 years. It used to be children could keep it the rest of their lives. No, the government wants it out within 10 years if the children inherit it now. They're flabbergasted with how much tax it adds up to. And I go, you know what? Let's get the taxes over and done with sooner than later. And they go, wow, but it's going to hurt a little bit. Oh, maybe for 5 years. But I've helped many couples pay only $60,000 in tax instead of putting it off and paying $250,000 by stringing it out. One couple, they were going to pay $750,000 in unnecessary tax. We saved them all of that $750,000. There was another couple, a husband and wife, both physicians. They had over $5 million in yet-to-be taxed IRAs and 401ks. They didn't need the money. And so they came in with a similar question. Doug, we don't need the money, the $5 million out of these IRAs and 401ks. But they were approaching the age of 70 and a half at the time, and they knew they were going to incur a 50% penalty. So they were going to take out RMDs. That's what their tax advisor said. When I did the analysis for them, they were shocked how much they would pay in tax if they followed that advice. Because most CPAs are only looking at the tax you save in a single year, not all the years added up together. And this has happened so many times when I tell people, you know what, bite the bullet, pay tax for 5 years. It's going to hurt a little bit. Would you rather pay this much in tax and then have it be tax-free forever after? Well, yeah, but it's going to hurt. I'm going, you're going to be way better off. Pay the tax. And I feel like Sam I Am in Green Eggs and Ham. If you've ever read that book by Dr. Seuss, I would say, you will like this. You will see. No, I don't want those green eggs and ham. I don't want to pay the tax. And then after 5 years, they go, oh, thank you. Thank you, Sam I Am. I like these green eggs and ham. Yeah, they like the benefit, and they ended up with double or triple the net spendable income by getting the money out, as painful as it was. This couple, the two physicians, I couldn't save them the $2.6 million of tax on that $5 million, but I saved them $1.2 million. You know what they did with $1.2 million of otherwise payable tax? They put that into what I call a family bank. I talk about what a family bank is in other episodes, but in a nutshell, that $1.2 million is now there for their children and their grandchildren and great-grandchildren to provide college education, humanitarian, military, religious missions, all kinds of humanitarian projects for their family retreats with a purpose for generations. If it went down the drain in unnecessary tax, which is what their CPA said they should do, and frankly, when I asked the CPA if they could save and redirect $1.2 million of otherwise payable tax, why wouldn't they do that? The CPA said they can afford to pay $2.6 million in tax. I'm going, why don't we ask them? We ask them and they go, well, no, not if we can redirect $1.2 million to this. See, they wanted to have choice and control on $1.2 million of unnecessary tax because they were convinced they could manage it far better for their family, for their values, than just to go along with where the government puts our tax dollars. Does that make sense? It wasn't a tax loophole. They were actually becoming financially independent and empowering their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren to not have to rely on government for welfare or anything else because they took ownership. That's one of the reasons why where I told them to put the money is totally tax-free. It's been a sacred cow in the Internal Revenue Code for a century. So let me explain a little bit deeper about how powerful this is. So this is what I call a strategic rollout. So when people have money, be it in real estate and they don't want to be a landlord anymore, maybe we sell their properties, you bite the bullet, you pay the capital gain tax, and you reposition the net into a portfolio of maximum funded tax advantaged index universal life insurance contracts where I've earned an average of 11.17% for the last 25 years, and I've netted, after all costs, over 10%, 10.07 to be exact. That means every $1 million generates $100,000 a year of tax-free income. That knocks the socks off of money in most people's IRAs and 401ks. It actually outperforms most people's real estate properties. If they want to keep the real estate, sometimes I say, well, do a 1031 exchange to a better performing property where you can quadruple your rental income. Sometimes people are only getting an effective yield of 2% annual rate of return, and I increase it to 8 or 10%. Whatever we do, we optimize those assets so that in retirement, we are doing far better and we're minimizing the tax. We're converting to tax-free. And so in a strategic rollout out of IRAs or 401ks, this is not a rollover. This is rolling the money out, getting the taxes over and done with sooner than later in today's lower brackets rather than thinking tomorrow's tax rates are going to be lower. No. Reposition the after-tax money into something that's going to be tax-free from now on. And at the end of the day, when they finally do pass away, it doubles, triples off times and transfers income tax-free. There's only one vehicle in the Internal Revenue Code that does that. It's not a Roth. Roths don't blossom in value when you die. It's a maximum funded, tax-advantaged insurance contract, and I prefer indexed universal life. I'm here in my studio, and I often talk about my various books that I've written here. My most recent bestseller is called The Laser Fund because I call it the Laser Fund. Liquid assets safely earning returns spells the acronym LASER. And so wherever you reposition serious cash that you don't want to jeopardize, you want it to pass the liquidity test, safety test, and the rate of return test, and tax-free accumulation is icing on the cake. If you'd like a free copy, you don't need to pay $20. That's the retail cost on Amazon. I will gift one of these to you absolutely free. You go to laserfund.com, laserfund.com, L-A-S-E-R, fund.com. You pay $5.95 shipping and handling. I'll pay for the book, and I'll fire one out to you free. You'll have options there to get the audio version and also additional video education if you would like. But I want to empower you so that you understand how to invest properly, especially during retirement, to optimize those assets, not outlive your money, increase your net spendable income, and leave behind this instead of leave behind this at the end of the day to set up your own family bank. You'll learn what a family bank is in this book.